Welcome to our class. In this class, I would like to talk about sending email with PHP. Let's look at the whole concept of sending email. What we have is an email client. And in the past, that was a separate application that ran on the person's computer. Today, we have what is called web-based email. Regardless, that client needs to connect to what is called an SMTP server. That's the email server, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. That is one of the internet protocols. So when someone sends an email, it goes through their email server and it connects to the recipient's email server, and then it goes to the recipient's account. Now the account can be set up as a POP3, which is Post Office Protocol, by the way, or an IMAP setup. The PHP Pair Mail module, which is talked about in this text. This is a PHP extension and application repository. Pair, which stands for PHP, E for extension, A for application, R for repository, that's where we get that acronym, isn't necessarily just a mail module. It is a repository, or you might look at it as a framework of open source code for PHP users. So there are other reusable components or classes. One of these classes is the pair mail. And what it does, it provides an interface to the PHP application for sending email. I would like to point out that in order to use pair mail, it works with the built-in PHP mail function, which I will cover later. So this is on top of the mail function. There are a lot of advantages to this. Number one, it is very well suited for large volumes of email that might be sent out in a loop, such as newsletters. Another advantage is it allows you to connect to the SMTP server using authentication. In other words, your login and password. So there's a higher level of security here. And it also allows you to work with an SMTP server that might have SSL encryption set up. In my opinion, there are some significant disadvantages. Number one, this is not part of the PHP base installation. Therefore, this module needs to be installed separately on the web server. Now, it either has to be there for you, or you have to go into the control panel and do something to activate, or you need to go to the command line to install it, or it may not even be able to be installed with your web host. For example, my GoDaddy account, which is an older account, cannot run pair mail, period. So I can't use it. When you're sending mail, you always need to have a recipient who's going to get it, and that's one or more people, a from address, the to address, which is essentially the recipient, a subject, and a message. There are several ways that we could set this up, and the way that the pair mail code works is that we're going to instantiate the mail object, and we're going to execute the send method on it, and we're going to pass it three parameters: the recipients, the headers, and the body. Now, the headers are going to be stored in an array. That's just the way it works. So you can create an array object and populate it that way, as the author is doing in the book, or you can use the shorthand, which I have here. So the recipients, one or two, however many people, and then I have the from, the to, because that has to be inside the email. The subject and the body essentially is the message that you're sending. Then we need to establish the parameters, which is the path, which is used in this creating the mail object, which is being stored in the variable mailer, which is being used to execute the send method. Now, where the data in the body comes from, that can come from a wide variety of sources. And I have another video showing you how to send form data. So let's look at the PHP built-in mail function. Again, it allows you to send emails directly from PHP script. This is part of the PHP core installation. It is included with PHP 4. You don't need to set anything up It's already there for you. And by the way, let's backtrack here. You can see where the pair module works with the built-in mail application. All right, disadvantages. It does not allow authentication or encryption, and it's not good for large quantities of mail. So if you were doing some commercial applications where you're sending out a lot of messages to all of your users, telling them about a wonderful sale, mail might be a little slow. However, for simple contact us form, it works very, very well in my opinion. The PHP Mail function is very similar to the pair installation. And here it is. It's the mail function. It needs 3 parameters. Who we're sending it to, the subject, because this shows up in your email client. The message, obviously we want to send a message. Now the headers are optional. However, you probably want to code in a from address. That would be part of the header. You can also code in some other things. And there are some other additional parameters. How we would set this up with real code, it looks very similar to the pair module. We need the 2. It's going to be an email address. It can be several. We need a subject. We need a message. And here I'm setting the headers variable. Now notice that I am using variables to store these values, and these are the 4 parameters that are being sent to the function, and when it reads this, this will be executed. However, you could hard code this in. Rather than $2, you could actually put that email address in there. Rather than $subject, you could actually put the subject in there. And to some extent, you can do that in the pair module also. It's always more efficient and cleaner to use variables. Another thing you can do with the PHP Mail function easier than you can with pair. You can do this with pair. It involves some MIME types and other configurations. And I'm talking about sending HTML email. Up to this point, it's been just text messages. So you can actually code in your HTML. We've all received HTML email, I'm sure. So let's take a look at how this works. It's the same mail function with executing these 4 parameters. One, the headers is optional, but however, in our case, it is required. So we have the 2, the subject. Here's our message. It's all HTML. Now in the headers, rather than storing it as an array, we just concatenate it. This is the way it works in this function. And because it would be shown if you were to click the arrow to see the headers, you would want them stacked on top of each other. You want to put your escape characters, \r\n. So if you're sending HTML, you need to code in the MIME versions, the type. Here, because these are part of the headers, we're also coding in our from and our CC, just to give you an example of how this would work. So in order to use the pair module, you would need to possibly do some configurations on your web server. However, the PHP Mail function is up and ready to go. You can use it immediately. It's a nice, easy way to receive the values that someone has entered in a form.